Imagine trying to quietly force a dystopian papers, please digital ID system onto the entire internet only to end up completely ruining your own plan just because you were simply too arrogant to realize that you were kicking the absolute biggest hornet's nest online. That is exactly what is happening right now across Europe and the world. And honestly, the pure second-hand joy of watching these out-of-touch politicians just have a total meltdown is hilarious. They genuinely thought that they could just sneak mandatory age gates, face scanning, and also digital identity checks under the radar by wrapping the whole thing in a nice little bow of quote-unquote protecting the kids. But instead, they accidentally lit the fuse on a massive global resistance movement that just seeks to rip the entire surveillance plan apart before it is even done being built. And here is how it all went down, because the timeline matters. So just 24 hours after the UK government dropped a sweeping social media ban for everyone underneath the age of 16, and that's on top of a looming deadline that basically is strong arming companies like Apple and Google into scanning the stuff on your own device, where digital rights advocates clearly hit their breaking point. They teamed up with some of the heaviest hitting privacy and human rights defenders in the entire planet, walked into the parliament of the EU in June of this year, and just launched a scorched earth campaign called Stop Killing the Internet. And get this, it is actually the sister campaign to Stop Killing Games. The exact same crowd that just dragged the gaming industry into a massive public reckoning. So these are like battle-tested organizers who already know exactly how to weaponize the internet by trying to ram digital checkpoints onto every single person under the banner of safety. Well, these politicians accidentally welded completely different corners of the web into one giant alliance now aimed directly at the terrifying global push for mandatory digital IDs. The pure panic that has to be happening behind the scenes in these government offices right now must be absolutely wild to witness, because they completely altered the trajectory of the entire digital privacy war just by being too smug to actually listen to everyday people. And if you want hard proof that these politicians just simply do not learn their damn lesson, we'll just look at what they pulled the very same week. The European Commission took the enormous Stop Killings Game petition with 1.3 million names and pretty much just shrugged the entire thing off, refusing to propose any actual binding law and just tossing out a completely toothless quote-unquote voluntary code of conduct instead. But it gets even better, because reports even pointed out that the game industry lobbyists had a cozy little closed door meeting with the commission roughly 2 weeks before that ruling dropped, which definitely sounds very fair and understandably raised a lot of eyebrows. So now you got that exact same dismissive who cares energy slamming into two completely different fronts at once, and crucially the exact same breed of organizers that are just refusing to just sit there and take it. Stop Killing the Internet completely bypassed all the whole usual gatekeeping nonsense and took the digital ID fight straight onto the legislative floor of the European Parliament, because they finally connected the dots. Like, the same lawmakers who will just happily let corporations render your purchases useless are the same ones who just now want you uploading your real world identity just to access a basic website. It is honestly a masterclass in fumbling the bag, because these bureaucrats keep on handing a massive pre-organized army of extremely online people a perfect unifying common enemy to rally against. This entire situation is a gigantic wake-up call, because it rips the mask off and just exposes the genuinely terrifying reality of what these governments are actually trying to build under that cozy quote-unquote online safety branding. What they really want is to normalize a world where your devices pretty much are child-locked by default, and you are legally forced to scan your physical passport or driver's license just to prove that you're an adult before you can even download a completely free, totally harmless app. The director of Big Brother Watch cut right through the whole noise at the campaign launch, just warning people that these policies create new safety and privacy risks for young people and also just entire adult populations alike. And that one line nails the glaring hypocrisy of the whole charade, because while these politicians keep hiding behind the noble sounding excuse of child safety, the actual policies do nothing but funnel absolutely ridiculous amounts of our most sensitive, completely unchangeable personal data right into the hands of just giant tech corporations and just unaccountable third party vendors. It is a total illusion of security that's realistically just a massive cybersecurity disaster just sitting there waiting to happen. You're being forced by law to trust random age verification companies that already have a genuinely embarrassing track record when it comes to keeping data safe to responsibly hoard a permanent record of your legal identity and your facial scans just so that you're allowed to use the internet. And we all know how it's going to end up. Because the moment when one of these honeypot databases will just get leaked, well, the bad actors don't just stroll off with your password because they just walk away with a centralized treasure chest hoarding your actual government ID linked directly to your private browsing habits, which obviously defeats the entire point of digital privacy in the first place. The sheer, almost comedic irony of the politician's backfire got summed up by one of the campaign's organizers, and also here's just a fun little detail for you, he's also the director of Stop Killing Games, sister campaign, who showed up specifically to throw his full weight behind the launch. He wrote out a flawless analogy that exposes just how hopelessly out of touch these lawmakers truly are. He argued that the internet is the modern world's vital town hall. And sure, just like real town halls, it can absolutely get ugly sometimes. But you would never in a million years respond to that just by bulldozing the entire building to the ground. And you would definitely never demand that every single person flash their official identity papers at the door just to be allowed to walk inside. But because these politicians have essentially zero working understanding of how modern technology actually functions, they genuinely convince themselves that they could just quietly force corporate controlled digital checkpoints onto our operating systems and that not a single soul would just ever push back. They truly believe that the public would just roll over and just quietly swallow up a full-blown surveillance society without a single word. But instead, their dismissive, almost condescending, we know best attitude lit an absolute fire under a high-profile global alliance that is now fighting tooth and nail to dismantle this entire digital ID plan before it can ever be fully switched on. At the end of the day, watching this entire strategy blow up so spectacularly in their faces is just an absolute masterclass in poetic justice, and the movement is making it crystal clear that this is in no way slowing down. Stop Killing the Internet has already filed a petition hammering the UK government to scrap its plan entirely and is actively rallying together internet users, families, content creators, and just technical experts to pressure lawmakers into actually finding solutions that don't involve slapping papers, police checkpoints across the entire open web. And meanwhile, over on the sister campaign side, will Stop Killing Games isn't letting the commission's lazy brush off slide either, because after getting told no, they flat out just announced that they can keep moving forward without the commission's blessing, and they're now pushing to actually get their protections amended directly into the EU's Digital Fairness Act, all while throwing their support behind California's Protect Our Games Act, which has already cleared the state assembly and is now heading to the Senate. Two separate campaigns, the exact same DNA in both, both flatly refusing to disappear. It just goes to show that when you sit smugly in an insulated little bubble and treat the public like they're completely idiots, well, you will eventually get absolutely humiliated by the raw organizing power of the internet. The bureaucrats want to quietly seize control of the entire digital landscape, but instead they just handed a furious, highly motivated group of people the exact rallying cry it needed to fight back. So yeah, that's the first video. Drop a comment, subscribe, all of that, and I will see you next time.